The day he laughed at my dream. My name is Emily Parker, and I still remember the evening my whole life changed. It was the night my husband looked me in the eyes and told me I would never earn real money. He said it slowly, with that small smirk he always used when he thought I was being silly. "Emily, you should stop wasting time. Go find a normal job. You will never make anything real." I stood in our tiny apartment kitchen holding a cup of coffee that had already gone cold. The window behind him showed the city lights outside. Cars moved slowly in the distance, but everything around me felt frozen. He sat at the dinner table, scrolling on his phone while I stood there with the plan I had been working on for months. A small business idea, a simple online boutique, nothing fancy, nothing loud, but something I believed in. He did not ask what my idea was. He did not ask what I planned to build. He did not ask why it mattered to me. Instead, he spoke without looking up. "I am the one paying rent. I am the one bringing money. You should just do something simple." His words hit harder than I expected, because a year earlier he was not like this. When we married, he called me smart, he called me creative, he said he believed in me, but all that faded the moment he felt I had no value to offer him. I walked to our small living room and sat on the worn couch. My laptop lay open on the table with my idea document glowing on the screen. A simple plan for my boutique, a store for handmade pieces, soft dresses, warm colors, natural fabrics. I whispered to myself, "I can make this work, I know I can." But his voice stayed louder in my head. "You will never make real money." Later the night he came to the couch and looked down at my screen. "What is this? Still working on that idea? Just stop it, Emily. You are wasting your time." His voice was not angry, just dismissive, casual, like my dream was a small joke. He went to bed early, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I sat quietly for a long time, listening to the refrigerator hum, watching the city lights flicker through the window, trying not to cry, not because I believed his words, but because the person who promised to stand beside me no longer cared about my hopes. I closed my laptop and whispered, "I am not giving up." But inside, a single spark lit up, a small fire, not loud, not angry, just strong. "I will prove him wrong." The next morning he left for work without saying much. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at my laptop again. Something inside me felt different. Not scared, not small, not broken, determined. I opened the document, looked at every line, every plan, every detail. I whispered, "I am doing this, even if I have to do it alone." That day I worked for hours, creating designs, searching suppliers, learning everything I could. I wrote emails, made calls, took notes. When my husband returned home, he looked at me and shook his head. "Still wasting time, Emily. When will you grow up?" But this time, his words did not break me, they shaped me. That night, for the first time, I saw the real truth. He did not believe in me, so I had to believe in myself. And that simple decision, the choice to trust my own hands, became the first step toward the empire I was about to build. An empire worth $46 million. An empire he would one day depend on, not me, on him. This was only the beginning. The morning after he dismissed my dream again, I woke up with a feeling I could not explain. It was not anger, not sadness, not fear. It was something heavier, something sharper, something that sat deep inside my chest like a quiet warning. For 2 years, I had tried to make our marriage feel like a team. I cooked, I cleaned, I listened, I supported, I encouraged, but somewhere in the middle of all those silent sacrifices, I had lost myself without even noticing. The sunlight came through the thin curtains and spread across the bed. I watched the dust move in the air and thought, this is not the life I planned. My husband, Daniel Parker, lay beside me snoring softly. His face was peaceful, relaxed, calm. It amazed me how easily he slept after crushing my dreams the night before. I slipped out of bed quietly and walked to the kitchen. The apartment was silent except for the low hum of the refrigerator. My laptop sat on the table where I had left it, open, waiting. I touched the keyboard and the screen lit up. My boutique plan, my designs, my ideas, my hopes, all of it, right there, still alive, even if he did not believe in it. I whispered, "I will not let him decide who I become." That whisper was the first honest sentence I had said to myself in months. Around 8 o'clock, Daniel walked into the kitchen, tie half done, coffee half poured. He looked at my laptop and shook his head with a slow, tired sigh. "Emily, you are still on this. Seriously, get real. You cannot build a business. People like you do not make money. People like you." Those words hit me harder than anything else. Not because they were true, but because they showed what he really thought of me. He did not see someone capable, he saw someone small. He grabbed his coffee and walked out the door without waiting for a reply. The door shut harder than necessary, and the whole apartment fell silent again. But instead of crying, I opened a new document and wrote 3 lines. "I will build this, I will succeed, I will prove him wrong." That day I worked from morning till evening, searching suppliers, sending emails, studying successful boutiques. Watching tutorials, sketching designs, my fingers hurt from typing, my eyes burned from staring at the screen, but I felt more alive than I had in months. At 5 o'clock I realized I had skipped lunch, skipped water, skipped everything, because when you work for something you believe in, time does not feel like time. It feels like purpose. I stood up and stretched my arms, my back ached, but my heart felt light. Then I heard keys at the door. Daniel returned. He walked in, dropped his bag, looked at my laptop and laughed, still pretending to be a business owner. "Emily, you cannot even sell a shirt." He took off his shoes, sat on the couch, and turned on the television. As if I was invisible, something inside me cracked, not in a fragile way, but in a strong way, like a shell breaking, revealing a new version of myself. I walked over and said, "Daniel, this is important to me." He did not turn his head. He just raised his eyebrows and said, "Well, it is not important to me." Those were the words. That changed everything. I walked back to the kitchen table, sat down, opened my laptop, and whispered, "Then watch me." The next morning, I opened an online workshop on launching boutique brands. It cost more than I could afford, but I signed up anyway. I took notes, I practiced, I learned about digital marketing, I learned how to find manufacturers, I learned how to build a catalog, I learned how to price products, I learned how to write descriptions. I learned everything. Every night Daniel came home, tired, angry, annoyed, and made the same comments. "It is pointless. You are wasting your time. I am the only earner. You should be grateful. Stop dreaming. Grow up." But I kept going, because his words no longer felt heavy. They felt like fuel. A month later, I created my store page. It was simple, warm, soft colors, natural designs. I smiled at the screen. It was not perfect, but it was real. My first launch day came. I posted everywhere. I shared with old contacts. I messaged small groups. I waited, heart racing, hands shaking, and nothing. No orders, no messages, no clicks. For the first time since starting this journey, I almost cried. Not because the world rejected me, but because I feared Daniel might be right. At 7 in the evening, he came home, threw his keys on the table, looked at my laptop, and said with a smirk, "How much real money did you earn today?" "0. Told you?" He walked to the bedroom, laughing under his breath. I stayed frozen in the kitchen chair, staring at my empty order screen. But then, something inside me whispered, "Try again tomorrow." So I did. I changed a few designs, fixed my photos, improved my descriptions, studied my competitors, worked until 2 in the morning. The next day, still nothing. Daniel mocked me again. "Another day of no money, Emily. You should listen to me sometimes." But on the 3rd day, at 11:43 in the morning, my screen blinked. One order, a small dress, handmade, soft fabric, warm color. Someone believed in me. My heart raced, my eyes filled. I covered my mouth. I stared at the screen for almost a full minute. Then another order, then a message from a customer asking about sizes. Then one more order. By evening, I had 6 sales. Small numbers, but big meaning. Daniel came home, saw me smiling, and said, "What? You made $10. Congratulations." He laughed again, but his voice sounded different. Less confident, less sure, because he saw something he did not expect. Hope in my eyes. That night I packed orders with shaking hands, taped boxes, printed labels, placed them by the door. I whispered, "This is the beginning." Daniel walked by and I said, "I give it 1 week, then it will fail." But it did not fail. It grew, because I had something he would never understand: hunger, purpose, strength, fire. And every sale pushed me closer to the moment he would regret ever doubting me, the moment he would depend on the empire he said I would never build. The empire worth $46 million, the empire that would one day pay his rent. The first week of my boutique brought only a few small sales, but every order felt like a heartbeat returning to my life. Each one said, "Someone believes in you. Keep going, Daniel." Still dismissed everything I did, sometimes with a laugh, sometimes with silence, sometimes with the same cold comment, "You are wasting your time. You will never make real money." But the strange thing was, the more he tried to break me, the stronger I felt myself becoming. I woke every morning before him, made coffee, sat at my best, small kitchen table, opened my laptop, and worked like my life depended on it, because in many ways, it did. I had spent too long living in someone else's shadow, too long shrinking myself to keep peace, too long waiting for permission, too long believing support and love would come back to me naturally, but it never did, so I learned to rely on myself. Day by day, my boutique grew, slowly, gently, but clearly. By the second week, I had 23 orders, then 40, then 60. Not life-changing money, not a fortune, but proof that my idea had value. Daniel hated it. Every time he saw a new order come in, he said something like, "Good for you, buy yourself a coffee," or "It will slow down soon." It always does. But every night I packed orders, taped boxes, wrote thank you cards by hand, because I wanted every customer to feel seen. Meanwhile, Daniel spent his evenings on the couch, watching television, scrolling his phone, complaining about work, complaining about his coworkers, complaining about bills. He saw his life as a burden, while I saw mine as a chance. 3 months passed. My store had now crossed 500 orders. I built a small following. People trusted my work. People loved the designs. Some customers returned. Some recommended my shop to friends. The numbers were small, but they were steady. And steady is how empires begin. One night, while packing orders, I heard Daniel behind me. He said, "So how much money have you made in total?" "Hundreds." "Wow, real impressive." His voice was sharp, sarcastic, but underneath that tone I heard something I had never heard before. Fear. The fear that I was becoming something without him. The fear that I did not need him. The fear that I was rising, and he was not. I turned slowly and said, "I am proud of what I built." He rolled his eyes. "Anyone can make a few $100s. Real money is different." He walked away, leaving the taste of disrespect in the air. But that night, everything changed. I received an email from a small influencer who had bought one of my dresses. She loved it, she posted it, and tagged my shop. Within minutes, my shop page exploded. Dozens of people visited, then hundreds, then thousands. Orders came so fast my screen could barely keep up. I sat frozen, staring at the numbers rising, my hands shaking, my heart racing. Each new notification felt like a drumbeat inside my chest. In the next 2 hours, I got 249 orders. I wanted to scream, laugh, cry, all at once. Daniel walked out of the bedroom. Half asleep, confused, he looked at my screen and said, "What is happening?" I turned the laptop toward him. His eyes widened. He blinked twice, then stared in silence. For the first time, he did not have a sarcastic comment. He had nothing to say. He walked away quietly, and I realized he did not know who I was anymore. The next month changed everything. I hired a supplier. I built a small warehouse setup in the building next door. I hired 2 part-time packers. I learned marketing. I improved my store. I invested in better photos. I paid for ads. Customers poured in. The growth was fast, unexpected, overwhelming, but beautiful. Daniel grew colder. Distance settled between us like a wall. He came home angry, tired, frustrated, not at work, but at me, at my success, at my independence. He once said, "You spend more time on that silly store than on this marriage." I replied calmly, "Because the store gives back, the marriage does not." He walked away, slamming the door. 3 more months passed. My store crossed $200,000 in revenue, then $500,000, then $1 million. My hands shook when I saw the number 1 million, something he said I could never earn. Not in a lifetime. I stood there in my small office, surrounded by stacked boxes, packing materials, clothing racks, and paperwork. I whispered to myself, "You did this, all of it, with your own hands." When I told Daniel, he stared at me like I was speaking a different language. He said, "You are joking." No, no way. Show me. I showed him the numbers, the statements, the orders, the revenue. He sat down slowly, breathing hard. He said, "You got lucky, Lucky. Not talented, not hardworking, not determined. Lucky." I realized in that moment no amount of success, no achievement, no milestone would ever make him respect me. Because some people cannot handle watching others grow, especially when they stay small. The next season brought my biggest breakthrough. A celebrity posted my dress on her story. I did not know her, she did not know me, but she loved my work. Within 24 hours, my shop reached 50,000 orders. My website crashed, my email exploded, my social media doubled. People begged for restocks. I hired a small team, an accountant, a designer, a shipping manager, a photographer. I rented a real office. I rented real storage space. I built my own brand identity. My boutique became a real company. Meanwhile, Daniel grew more insecure, more jealous, more controlling. He asked questions like, "Why do you need staff? Why do you need meetings? Why do you need an accountant? Why are these people talking to you?" He once grabbed my laptop and said, "Let me see your numbers. I want to know what is going on." I pulled it back. "Those are my numbers, my work, my business," he said. "We are married. What is yours is mine." But I looked straight into his eyes and said, "Not anymore." He stepped back, stunned, silent. He never expected me to have a voice. He never expected me to have power. He never expected me to outgrow the tiny box he built for me. 1 year later, my revenue crossed 12 million, then 18, then 25, then 30, then $46 million. My company grew, my brand became known, my reputation spread, my customer base expanded, my life transformed, and Daniel, the man who said I would never earn real money, lost his job. One evening he came to me quietly, with no anger, no sarcasm, just desperation. "Emily, I need help. Can you cover rent for a few months?" I looked at him, the man who once told me, "You will never make real money." Now, depending on the empire, he said, I would never build. I paid the rent, not because he deserved it, but because it proved something powerful. My success was louder than his doubt. My rise was greater than his limits. My strength was bigger than his words. And that was the sweetest, quiet revenge I ever could have imagined. When my company crossed $46 million in total revenue, my life looked nothing like the past I came from. I had moved from our small, cramped apartment to a bright 2-floor workspace with tall windows and wide wooden tables. My team had grown. My orders were steady. My designs were known. I could walk into any meeting with my head held high. But through all of this, one odd truth stayed with me like a shadow behind my success. Daniel still lived with me. Not as a partner, not as a supporter, not as someone who believed in me, but as someone who needed me. After he lost his job, he changed overnight. He became quiet, less confident, more confused, and he walked around the apartment like he did not belong. One morning, about a week after I paid his rent for the first time, I woke up early and walked into the kitchen. The apartment was calm and warm, sunlight falling across the counter. Daniel was sitting at the table with his head in his hands. His hair was messy, his shirt wrinkled. He looked older than 42. When he saw me, he sat up straight quickly, as if trying to hide something. He said morning, but his voice was small. I poured myself a glass of water and asked, "Did you apply for jobs yesterday?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "I tried, but nothing is available. It is not my fault." For years, he had blamed everything except himself. His boss, his coworkers, his stress, his schedule, his luck. I sat across from him and said calmly, "You should keep trying." He nodded weakly. "Yeah, I will, maybe today." But the truth was clear. He did not want to try. He wanted me to carry the weight. He wanted to lean on my success, not rebuild his own life. After breakfast, I drove to my office. As I walked in, my team greeted me warmly. Boxes were being packed, orders printed, photos taken, fabric samples laid out. My life was becoming full and bright, while his life shrank into silence. Around noon, while reviewing new designs, I received a message from him. It said, "Can you send money for groceries? I do not have enough. Also, rent is due next week." I stared at the message for a long moment. Not angry, not frustrated, just surprised. He did not even ask how I was, or how business was, or how my day was going. He only asked for money. I sent the money, but something inside me hardened quietly. A small piece of my heart closed that day, and it would never reopen. When I returned home that evening, he was sitting on the couch watching television. Like always, he turned to me and said, "Thank you for the money," then added, "I hope business keeps going good. We need it." We, the same man who said, "You will never make real money." Now, using the word we, I simply nodded, but inside my mind, I repeated one sentence: "This is not a marriage anymore." The next morning, I held a team meeting in my office. We discussed new fabric suppliers, we planned a spring collection, we talked about hiring a new marketing manager. My company was growing faster than I ever imagined. There was a sense of movement, energy, belief. Everyone cared, everyone tried, everyone brought value. That afternoon, my accountant called me into his office inside the building. He said, "Emily, you need to separate your personal finances from your home finances. Your business is strong, but you are spending too much on things that are not connected to it." He did not mention Daniel. He did not have to. I knew what he meant. I sat for a moment, silent thinking. Then I said, "You are right. I need to protect what I built." I left the office and drove home. The entire ride felt heavy. The city outside the window moved fast, but inside my mind, everything slowed. When I walked inside, Daniel was sitting on the floor with papers spread around him. He said, "I am working on my resume. I need help." Help! He had never helped me build anything. He only questioned, criticized, laughed, but now he needed help. I sat across from him and said, "What do you need?" He looked embarrassed, then whispered, "I do not understand how to write it. Can you do it?" For me, I took a deep breath. Part of me wanted to say no. Part of me wanted to tell him, "You did not help me when I needed it. You belittled me. You told me I would fail." But another part of me, a stronger part, said something simple. "I am no longer fighting for this marriage. I am fighting for myself." I said, "I cannot write it for you, but I can show you how." He looked hurt, then angry, then ashamed. He whispered, "You think you are better than me now." I did not respond, because we both knew the truth. I was not better. I was just stronger, and he did not know how to handle it. The next day, he came to me with an envelope. He said, "I need 2 more months of rent help. I will pay you back." I looked into his eyes, and I saw the man I once loved, but also the man who held me back, told me I would fail, dismissed my dreams, made me small. I said calmly, "Daniel, I will pay the rent, but we need to talk soon." He nodded, afraid quiet. That night I could not sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The apartment felt too quiet. The space beside me felt too cold, I whispered. When did this become my responsibility? When did I start carrying both of us? When did he stop being my partner? Around 2 a.m, a simple truth settled inside me. I had outgrown him, not because of money, but because of mindset. He stayed the same. I changed. He chose comfort. I chose growth. He held me back. I moved forward. And now he needed me more than I needed him. The next morning, I went to work early. My team greeted me with smiles, with energy, with purpose. I reviewed new samples, reviewed numbers, reviewed emails. Every part of the day reminded me I built this life. Not him, me. Late that afternoon, something happened that made everything crystal clear. A major investor reached out, someone who wanted to expand my brand into physical stores, real stores. In 3 big cities, it felt unreal. My heart raced, my mind spun, my eyes watered. The investor said, "Emily, your company has outgrown the online space. It is time for something bigger." When I ended that call, I sat in my office chair, breathing slowly. My mind returned to Daniel, to the apartment, to the quiet, to the rent, to his words. "You will never make real money," but I had made real money. More than he ever made, more than he ever believed I could, more than he ever respected. Now my success was national, growing, expanding, and he was still sitting in our apartment waiting for rent money. That evening I walked into the apartment. He stood there waiting. He said, "Emily, I got another bill." I Need your help again." His voice was small, weak, dependent. I looked at him, the man I once trusted, once loved, once believed in, and I finally said the truth. "Daniel, you do not get to break my dreams and still live off my success." He stared at me, silent, shocked. Unable to find words, I continued, "I will help with rent for now, but our lives are going in different directions, and you know it." He looked at the floor, then whispered, "I need you." I whispered back, "I needed you too, but you never showed up." He closed his eyes, and for the first time I saw regret, real regret, not fake apologies, not excuses. He knew he had lost me, not because I walked away, but because I outgrew the person he chose to be. The next chapter of my life was going to be mine, fully mine. The days that followed felt heavier than I expected. Not because of sadness, not because of fear, but because I could feel life shifting underneath my feet. It was like walking across a bridge that led away from everything familiar and toward everything I had worked for. And Daniel could feel that shift too. He watched me quietly now. No more jokes, no more smirks, no more dismissive comments. He stayed careful, almost cautious, as if he knew one wrong word would push him out of my life forever. And maybe he was right. One morning, I stepped out early to head to my office. The building door shut behind me, and for the first time since our marriage began, I did not feel I was leaving home. I felt I was walking toward it. The office was already busy when I arrived. Fabric samples on tables, boxes stacked neatly, a production schedule on the wall. My team greeted me with warmth. "Emily, good morning. We have big news," I smiled. "I am ready." Julia, my operations manager, stepped forward holding her tablet. She said, "The investor wants to move fast. They want to launch your brand in 3 cities before the end of the year." My breath caught. This was real. This was happening, I asked. "Which cities?" She smiled. "New York, Los Angeles, Chicago." I sat slowly on the chair beside me, hands shaking, legs weak. Daniel once told me, "You will never make real money." Yet here I was, about to open stores in 3 major cities. I whispered, thank you so much." My team clapped softly, happy for me, proud of me, not because I was lucky, but because I worked, because I pushed, because I kept going even when everything around me told me to stop. That afternoon, I had a call with the investor. He said, "Emily, your brand has something rare: honesty, warmth, strength. We want to build your empire. Exactly the way you dreamed it, empire." That word felt strange, heavy, powerful, but true. After the call, I returned home early. I needed time to think, time to breathe, time to decide what came next. When I opened the apartment door, Daniel was sitting on the couch, staring at a blank television screen. His posture was small, his shoulders curved inward, his confidence gone. He looked up slowly, his eyes tired. He said, "Emily, can we talk?" I placed my keys on the counter, then sat across from him. He swallowed hard, then said something I never expected. I lost who I was, and I took it out on you. I stayed silent, letting him speak. He looked down at his hands. "I should have supported you. I should have believed in you, but I felt threatened. Your success shows how small mine was." He wiped his forehead, and I hid that jealousy by making you feel small. "I am sorry." His voice cracked, real, broken. Human. I did not move. I just watched him. He continued, "I depended on your failure because I could not handle your growth. And now, you are the one saving me." Silence filled the room. Not cold, not sharp, just heavy. He whispered, "Emily, I do not deserve you, but I am asking, please do not leave me behind." I felt tears form behind my eyes, not from pain, but from the truth I had finally accepted. I said softly, "Daniel, I am not the same woman you married, and you are not the same man I hoped you would become." He looked away as if the words physically hurt him. I continued, "You did not break me, but you did teach me strength. You taught me what I never want again. You taught me what respect looks like by never giving it, and you taught me how to build without support." He looked at the floor, shoulders shaking slightly. I stood up, walked to the window, and looked at the city outside, the lights, the cars, the people moving, the world happening. My world, not his anymore. I spoke without turning around. "I will help with rent until you get on your feet, because that is who I am, not because of you, but because of me." He slowly looked up, his voice barely. Above a whisper, "Emily, I still love you." I closed my eyes, let the words hang in the air. Then I said, "I loved the man you used to be, but that man is gone, and I cannot stay with the version who tried to kill my dreams." He covered his face, crying quietly. For years, I had cried quietly in that same apartment. Now the roles had changed. I stepped closer, placed the lease papers on the table and said, "I am moving out. You can stay here until you find a job. The rent is taken care of for 3 months after that. It is yours to handle." He looked at me with shock. "And something else, respect, real respect, the kind he never gave me before," he whispered. "Where will you go?" I smiled softly. "To a place where I can grow." That evening I packed a suitcase, just essentials, just clothes, just work items. I picked up my laptop, the same laptop that carried my first designs, my first orders, my first plan, my first victory. Daniel stood in the doorway as I prepared to leave. He said, "Emily, thank you for silence." Everything. I did not look back. Not because I hated him, but because my future was not behind me. I walked down the hallway, pulled the door shut, and stepped into the elevator. As the doors closed, I whispered, "You did it. You saved yourself." The next morning, I signed the contract for the first physical store. A real store with real shelves, real displays, real customers. My team clapped, my investor shook my hand, my designer hugged me. My boutique, my brand, my empire was officially expanding, becoming something bigger than I ever dreamed. Months passed. My New York store launched. Crowds lined up outside. Women cried when they saw my designs. Influencers documented the opening. Reporters interviewed me. My sales tripled. Then came Los Angeles. Then Chicago. Every store opening felt like a new chapter. A new victory, a new reminder that I had built my life from the ground up with nothing but belief and the quiet fire inside me. Meanwhile, Daniel finally found a job smaller than his old one. Less pay, less title, but a fresh start. He sent me a message. It said, "Emily, I paid my own rent today. Thank you for giving me time. I hope your empire keeps growing. You deserve everything," I replied. "Take care of yourself. No anger, no regret, just closure." And for the first time, I felt free. Completely free. One evening I stood in my flagship store, lights warm, customers smiling, my team bustling, my name glowing above the door. Emily Parker, founder and CEO, a title no one gave me. I earned it. I walked to the front window, looked at the city lights, and whispered, "My husband said I would never earn real money. But now, my $46 million empire pays his rent, not out of revenge, but out of victory, real victory, quiet victory, lasting victory. The kind a woman builds when she stops waiting for permission and starts trusting her own fire."